Section 3 of Anthropology. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Anthropology, Book 1 by Immanuel Kant, translated by Adolf Ernst Kroger. Section 3. 6. Concerning the perspicuity and obscurity in the consciousness of our representations. The consciousness of our representations, which suffices to distinguish one object from another, is called clearness, but that whereby even the composition of our representations is made clear is called perspicuity. The latter alone changes the sum of representations into a knowledge, in which, since every conscious composition presupposes its unity, and hence a rule for it, order is assigned in thought to the manifold of that knowledge. A clear representation of perception we must not oppose by a confused perception, perceptio confusa, but simply by the obscure. That which is confused must be composed, for in the simple there is neither order nor confusion. The latter is therefore the cause, but not the definition, of obscurity. In all complex representations, perceptions complexes, such as every knowledge is, since every knowledge requires contemplation and conception, perspicuity depends always upon the order according to which the partial representations are composed, which then induce, when merely concerning the form, a simple logical division into primary and secondary perceptions, or a real division into principal and adherent perceptions, by means of which order the knowledge becomes perspicuous. Every one will see that if the faculty of cognition in general, or knowledge, is called understanding, in the most general acceptation of the word, this understanding must involve the faculty of gathering up given perceptions or representations, attentio, in order to produce the faculty of abstracting from that which is common to many, and the faculty of conception, but must also involve the faculty of reflecting, in order to produce a knowledge of the object. Whoever possesses these faculties in a preeminent degree is called a great mind, and he to whom they are allotted very limitedly is called a mere stick, since he is always carried by another. But he who is gifted, moreover, with originality in their use, by virtue of which he produces out of himself what must generally be learned under the tuition of others, is called a genius. The man who has learned nothing of that which must be taught in order to be known is called an ignoramus, if he ought to have known it, and if he lays claim to be a scholar. For if he does not claim that, he may nevertheless be a great genius. A man who cannot think for himself, though capable of learning much, is called narrow-minded. A man may be a vast scholar, a machine for instructing others, and yet be narrow-minded in regard to the rational use of his historical knowledge. A man whose use of what he has learned betrays the fetters of the school, and hence lack of freedom in self-thinking when he communicates it to others, is called a pedant, whether he be a scholar, soldier, or even a courtier. Amongst these the learned pedant is, after all, the most sufferable, since we can at least learn something from him, whereas the painful formalities, pedantry, of the courtier are not only useless, but moreover ridiculous, on account of the pride which inevitably attaches to the pedant, since it is the pride of an ignoramus. But the art, or rather the cleverness of speaking in a conversational tone, and generally of appearing in fashion, which art is falsely called popularity, and chiefly when referring to science, whereas it ought to be called trimmed up shallowness, covers many a defect of a narrow-minded man. Only children, however, allow themselves to be led astray by it. Thy drum, said Addison's Quaker to the officer sitting at his side in the coach, is an emblem of thyself. It sounds because it is empty. To judge men according to their faculty of cognition, or their understanding in general, we divide them into those men to whom we must admit common sense, sensus communis, though it must not be common, sensus vulgaris, and into men of science. The former are conversant with rules in application, in concreto; the latter with the rules by themselves, and in advance of their application, in abstracto. We call the kind of an understanding requisite for the former faculty of cognition sound common sense, bon sense, and that necessary for the other faculty a bright mind, ingenium perspicuum. It is remarkable that the former kind of men are generally looked upon, not only as not in need of culture, but as perhaps likely to suffer damage from culture, unless it is carried far enough. Hence they are lauded to the skies, and represented as mines wherein untold treasures are hid in the depths of the soul, and sometimes their utterances are passed over as oracles. Instance the Daemon of Socrates, and as more reliable than anything that studied science may bring upon the market. Nevertheless, this much is certain, that if the solution of a question rests on the general and inborn rules of the understanding, the possession of which is called mother wit, it is more unsafe to look around for studied and artificially elaborated principles, and to form one's resolutions according to them, than to risk the decision of the determining grounds of judgment, which rest in the obscurity of the soul, and which might be called the logical tact, wherein considerateness represents to itself the subject from various sides, and produces a current result, without being conscious of the acts that pass in the mind while doing so. But sound common sense can prove this its excellence only with reference to an object of experience, and show that it not only itself grows through experience, but that it also causes experience to grow, not from a speculative, but only from an empirical pragmatical view, however. For in speculative science we need scientific principles a priori, but in empirical sciences we may have experiences, that is, judgments, which can be continually proved by experiment and success. Section 3.